Hey guys, thanks for coming in to listen to my review of the Experience Hendrix concert, which was on March 29th in Newark, New Jersey at the PAC Center. Before I get to my review, please be sure to follow me on Twitter. It's at Talking Metal. I have a podcast called Talking Metal. Please subscribe to that on iTunes and support me on Patreon. My name is Mark Strigl. The last name is Strigl. All right, so last night, my father-in-law's in town, so my wife Emily and I took my father-in-law to see Experience Hendrix. Tickets were $133 each for a total of $399 for 3 seats, which we paid for. We spent $75 on a babysitter. I got a calculator going here. That puts our grand total up to $474. We had to, since we have the new puppy, we had to pay the dog walker $20 to come walk the dog while we were gone. Transportation was $20 each way, which would have been the same as parking. We chose to take a Lyft. Parking would have been the same exact amount. So anyways, we're well over $500 to see Experience Hendrix in Newark, New Jersey. What I learned at this show is you don't cover Hendrix, okay? Hendrix was a god, an innovator, a visionary. His music was so potent. Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding, the grooves that they threw down behind them, also untouchable. I mean, Hendrix was up here, but those guys were right here too, with their skill level and their innovation and their creativity. The Experience Hendrix show in Newark, New Jersey last night was a snooze fest. Completely boring. Complete waste of money, and I left there angry after spending more than $500 to see this. On paper, I love Dave Mustaine. I've seen Megadeth probably dozens of times. I love Joe Satriani. I think he's a fantastic guitar player. Dweezil Zappa, his first 2 solo albums I was a big fan of. I respect him as a guitar player. But it just didn't. King's X, Doug Pinnick was a part of it too. This just didn't work. It just didn't work. Billy Cox, who was part of the Band of Gypsies, was a big part of this. Is a guy pushing 80 years old. And Band of Gypsies was that short-lived band Hendrix had after the Jimi Hendrix Experience, when Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell were no longer playing with him. So Billy Cox played with Hendrix for a very brief period of time before his death, and he was kind of the featured connection to Hendrix at this Experience Hendrix show. I didn't have that big a problem with him. I mean, his voice wasn't that great, and the bass was a little muddy, in my opinion, which may have not been his playing. It could have been the sound system. I don't know. But it's not terribly exciting, that guy. Joe Satriani, Doug Pinnick, and Kenny Aronoff all came out at the end of the set. You know, I got to the point after sitting there for like, an hour and a half. I was like, I don't think they're even going to show up. But they bring them out at the very end, and they do like 4 or 5 songs together, which I thought Kenny Aronoff's playing did not fit Hendrix music at all. He plays very, very white. I'm sorry. I know he's supposedly brilliant. I've seen him with other bands. And everyone loves him. Man, he did not work for me at the Hendrix Experience Hendrix. I thought rigid. His playing sounded rigid to me. I'm sure it's technically fantastic, and he's, a great player, but it just didn't work on Hendrix songs. I can say the same about Joe Satriani's playing. I mean, he didn't even try to sound like Hendrix. They played Hendrix songs, but it was like Joe Satriani doing his own thing in playing Hendrix songs. Whereas I felt like Dave Mustaine and Dweezil Zappa, and there was some other guy I'd never heard of who was quite good playing the Strat earlier in the night. They were a little better, trying to capture the more of the Hendrix flavor and spirit. Eric Johnson a little bit, but then he would kind of bust into Eric Johnson mode here and there. I don't know, man. Covering Hendrix is a very bad idea. because Hendrix is so great and you can never touch him. I'm not saying you shouldn't cover Hendrix, but putting your own spin on a Hendrix song is risky, and it didn't pay off. I'm out $500. I would have rather stayed home and stayed in bed and slept or read a book or watched TV or possibly even stared at the wall. So I give this concert 2 out of 10 stars. Avoid Experience Hendrix. Terrible, terrible night. All right. I wish I had my $500 back.